This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. Off the turf today at Aqueduct, if you're wondering. That news just came in a few moments ago. Unfortunately, the nice stakes race down there also will be moved to the main track, but it's that time of year and that kind of weather. But adjust your figuring accordingly for this afternoon. We'll talk a little bit racing towards the end of the program. Fairgrounds opened up a couple days ago. Ryan Martin from the Fairgrounds, he's your paddock commentator down there until Joe Christofek gets away from Churchill Downs when they close their meet. Joe will be headed down to Fairgrounds, but in the meantime, Ryan Martin in the paddock. I thought we'd get a little preview of the Fairgrounds meet towards the end of the program. A little bit before that, Pat Cummings, the executive director of the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation. We'll get a little update on that organization. We talked to Pat pretty much as he was moving into the executive director role this summer up at Saratoga. We had Pat on with us. So again, a little update on the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation. And they put out a paper just within the last week or so talking about maybe some ideas to change up how stewards adjudicate races. That's kind of interesting, so we'll hit on that. Top of the program, Christina Bosanakis. Folks in our audience may remember Christina from her time in the paddock down at Gulfstream with our friend Ron Nicoletti. But of course, Christina also has been at other racing organizations behind the scenes. And most recently, interesting, she's an author of a book on one of our favorite trainers, D. Wayne Lukas. So I thought we'd touch on that. Christmas season is right around the corner, so it could be a perfect gift. Christina, good morning.
Good morning, and you're right. We have those days with Ron Nicoletti. They were a lot of fun. I think sometimes people don't realize that I actually started off as a turf writer, as an editor for the Thoroughbred Daily News, which I still do, in fact. So the writing, the TV, everything's come together, and I think there's nothing that's been a greater honor for me than penning this book on D. Wayne Lukas.
And for me, it's completely obvious because I got into the game probably at about the time Lukas was really making his mark. And so for me, this guy has been a big part of the game since I've been in it and a big part of the game overall. And then he kind of changed the training game in that there were prominent trainers before D. Wayne Lukas came along. But he's a guy who really changed the game with the jet airplanes and having strings all around the country. And we, of course, know the various very good trainers now who were assistants for D. Wayne Lukas back in the day. But again, a prominent guy for guys like me when I got into the game. But I think it's going to be very interesting for younger folks to maybe get up to date on D. Wayne Lukas by reading your book. And the name of the book, Sermon on the Mount. Before we get into it specifically, what was the impetus for doing a book on D. Wayne Lukas?
Well, I think there's a couple of different things. I've been basically harassing Wayne for years, I would say a decade, and trying to get this book written. And Wayne, at the time, basically, 10 years ago or so, he was not, even 5 years or so, he wasn't really at the place where he wanted to do such a thing. It's a lot of work. It turned out to be a lot of work. But I think just in terms of trying to impress upon him and also other people the importance of also, as you mentioned, he is a legendary figure. He's a figure that is very important. Certainly in the last 50 years in our industry, he has changed the way things, really the way the training game has been played. So it was important to document this type of thing. I think where we started with the book and where it ended up It really is a beautiful book. It really is a type of item. It's like a collector's item. You definitely want to get it. You want to hold it. A lot of people hold on to it. You have a lot of people who go and want to get it signed by him. So that is innate. That's basically built into it. But one thing also is the wisdom. There are a lot of quotes in there, and Wayne is famous for his quotes, his comments. He has become famous for that. But I think that what people may not realize in terms of his success and how he has just evolved, not only as a trainer, but as a man, he really is one of the most positive people I know. And in working on this book, I was really blessed and privileged to find out, really to the degree that he is, that he can really, he's a propelling force. And he always moves forward positively. And in this particular book, you will see his life. He's had a lot of really high highs, but he's also had some really epic lows in his life, namely with his son Jeff and his injury and how important he was to the operation. So I think people will be surprised. There will be some things in the book that people will remember about Wayne, will know about Wayne, and it's second nature. There are other things in this book that you'll find out about him that you'll be like, I never really knew that about him. And it really is an uplifting book. And I think actually Christmas time is the perfect time to get this book into as a gift, because it really is an uplifting book.
Yeah, and again, it's Christmas right around the corner, so a great gift idea for racing fans that you may have on your list. We showed the graphic there that had the website, dwaynelucasbook.com. That's one of the options. If you want multiple copies, go there. Also, the Derby Museum website, derbymuseumstore.com. You can pick up single editions there. I'm curious, where'd you come up with the title, Sermon on the Mount?
That's all Dwayne Lucas. And that's all Dwayne Lucas. And again, if you know Wayne, that he's a man, he loves his quotes, he loves his one-liners, very funny at times. He's very, very quick, very witty. He felt that was appropriate. There's a bit of tongue-in-cheek if you look at it. The cover of the book, he's sitting on a mount. He's sitting on a horse, on his pony, one of his dazzling ponies. So there's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek in there. I think it's very apropos, but that's all Wayne. And Wayne really, what I want people to know is Wayne really had a very strong hand in this book. He was very involved in the process from the beginning. So there's a lot, even though, yes, I wrote it. Yes, I wrote all the editorial, I pieced everything together, but Wayne really was a strong, a very important factor in terms of like a driving force in this book.
Yeah, and you talked about chasing him down for a while. I've tried to get him on with me at Saratoga for years now, and I can't twist his arm to get him over there, but I'd love to talk to him because, again, he has become kind of an ambassador for the sport now, and certainly a great history. I'll get him over at some point, but in the meantime, people can certainly leaf through the book. I went to the Dwayne Lucas book website, and there were some pictures on there, and one of them was of a younger Christina Bosanakis and a younger Dwayne Lucas. It looks like he's signing a program, so it seems like you've been a fan for a while.
I've been a fan since I was a teenager, and the funny part of that is I was really just starstruck that day that I met him for the first time in Saratoga in 1994. The picture's actually in the book, and I have a little bit of a write-up in terms of the meeting, the first time that I met him. And just to impress upon the fact, in terms of one of the things that people may or may not, I think people do know this by now about Wayne, is that he really is, he's very accessible to the fans. He was back then. Yes, of course, he can sometimes also be prickly to the media, but to the fans, he's been great. And when I first met him, I was really starstruck by him, and he really made a huge impact. And I have told him many times, I tell everybody that'll listen, he's a big reason why I am doing what I'm doing today. Professionally, the fact that I'm in horse racing, not only as a professional, but also that I'm still a racing fan. Wayne Lucas is a very big part of that. And that meeting that you see in that picture, that basically just highlights that, for me, that was a defining moment where, yeah, this guy is the way you see him on TV. This is what he is when there's not a, camera around. So he really has been a very big, a big factor in my life, and in terms of just getting me in terms of on board and being a fan. Yours
and the racing game in general, as I've alluded to and stated specifically, but for folks who don't know, going through the Wayne Lukas school, in quotes, trainers like Pletcher and Dallas Stewart and Kieran and Hennig and some of the other names were assistants for Wayne Lukas over the years. Is there discussion of that period in the book?
Yes, there certainly is. There's a section on the trainers, the assistants, I should say, and also, the jockeys that were, in terms of the, following up with the jockeys, everybody that worked in and around with Wayne. The one thing, Seth, that I really want to underscore here is the importance of one assistant, and that's Jeff Lucas. Jeff is a really big part of this book, and you'll see there's a lot of pictures of Jeff being the son, the only child of Wayne Lukas. And what really resonated with me when I was working on this book and in the years that I've been interviewing Wayne is how important Jeff was not only to the operation but to Wayne Lukas himself. And many people, if you speak to Todd Pletcher spent a lot of time with Jeff Lucas. Certain of the assistants, they all had such a high regard for him. And if you see, Jeff Lucas could have been that guy today had fate not intervened. But I would say that it really is a tribute to Wayne Lukas. The book is also a tribute to Jeff Lucas because Wayne is the first guy who's going to tell you that he was important, and he was very important to the operation and to a lot of the things that they did.
You talked about things that people may be surprised about when they read the book to learn. Were there any surprises for you as you sat down with Wayne Lukas and put this information together?
I think with Wayne back in his coaching days, I think that the fact that he invented a shoe, an athletic shoe, I think that was something that I didn't know that he did it as his master's thesis. And he actually he invented a training shoe, which he sold to Converse, which was great. Of course, he took the proceeds, he went back and he bought horses, which is understandable. But I think that was one of the things. Also, one of the things that I thought was surprising, and again, because this is just when I started watching or following horse racing, I've dug up a lot of pictures of Winning Colors, and I saw a very young Dallas Stewart on board in the morning, and I didn't know. I didn't know that he was actually one of the regular riders for Winning Colors, the 1988 Kentucky Derby winner. So I thought that was interesting. But I think personally, when you read some of Wayne's quotes and some of the things that he has to say about his family and his friends, I think that is something that maybe really didn't come across all these years in the media. Because he was a very high, very successful, very brash. He was a very dramatic figure in racing, but I think people may not also have realized that he's a big softy. I don't know if he would want me to say that, but and he's very connected to his people, and I think that was one of the things that I found not surprising, but I found it really, really even more endearing.
And it's incredible how long he's been at the top of the game. With Bravazzo this year, that continued certainly keeping his name in the headlines. Do you agree with the interpretation I put on earlier? It happens, there are special guys in all kinds of sports, but he seems to be one in the game of horse racing. He was at the top level of the game, and as I say, he remains there. But as he's aged, he's maybe mellowed a little bit and become kind of an ambassador for horse racing.
He really has, and I can tell you many times on several occasions, I'll be at his barn, we'll be working on certain things, or I'll just be, passing through. The traffic, Seth, that comes through that barn, whether it's media, fans, you name it, people just passing through to talk to him, to meet with him, is just amazing. And the one thing I don't want to neglect to mention is you mentioned this type of figure. Our preface to the book, or the foreword to the book, has been done by Bill Parcells. And of course, Bill Parcells, he's a legendary figure in his own right in football. And he was another guy that when I spoke to him, I thought to myself, wow, he really is. He says in the book, I am Wayne and I are the same person. And they really are. They really are. They're both such motivational type of guys, and guys that really, move the needle. And I think that it's a beautiful read in terms of what Bill had to say about Wayne, because it really, I think, underscores Wayne not only from our perspective, but also from other professionals and their feelings about him.
You mentioned it earlier. He used to be a coach and occasionally gets referred to as coach. Did he talk at all about what drove him to move from coaching basketball back in the day to the horse racing game?
Well, you'll see. You know, what's interesting is he was at a crossroads where he could have gone either way, and he would have been. And knowing Wayne, he would have been successful no matter what he would have done. So yes, he does discuss it, and I think at that point he really just got hooked onto the horses. He was actually doing both at the same time. He was coaching basketball and he was racing horses, buying, selling, trading horses at the same time, and he really just got hooked onto the horses. That really stuck with him. And he decided to go in that direction as opposed to staying on course with the basketball. But again, you'd see that he would have been successful no matter which course he would have taken. The one thing that I really admire Wayne for, or one of the things, is that there's no regret. You're never going to hear him regret any of the decisions he made, anything that he's done, and including the decision to go with horse racing rather than basketball. I will tell you one thing. The amount of interest that we've had from universities, from other educational, we'll say, athletic institutions in terms of this book has been amazing. And again, that's been a little bit of a surprise to me. It's not necessarily a surprise, but it's been a little bit, it's been like a, wow, it just tells me how important he is beyond the sport of horse racing. And out into the bigger, broader world.
Yeah, and I think that is demonstrated again by those assistant trainers who went on to have spectacular careers on their own. I think that can translate over into the business world, that mindset and that kind of thinking and that organization. You and I were talking before we went on the air, and we showed a shot a little bit earlier, you and Wayne at a book signing. I believe that was just recently at EquestriaCon. How'd that go? What was the reception? I'm imagining probably pretty good. And before we went on the air, we were also talking the new exhibit down at the Derby Museum. I caught a little video of that on the internet last night as I was going through. That looks like a spectacular exhibit focusing on Wayne Lukas. Again, talk a little bit about the book signing and some of the other events that have happened recently.
You know, it's wonderful to watch Wayne with the fans. When people come up to him and you see, you touched upon this just a minute ago in terms of, I was saying how I felt about him. You see that there are so many people who feel that way about him. And, at EquestriaCon, it was like the fans being able to come up to him. And not only the fans, even the industry folk, they came up to him. They wanted him to sign a book. But I will say the exhibit at the Kentucky Derby Museum, they've done a wonderful job. They've put in a lot of work. It actually, the development and the progress of the museum kind of coincided with the book. And we worked a little bit together in terms of getting, some of the key elements into both. And if you go to the museum, it really is a beautiful tribute to a man that has not only accomplished a lot, but he's meant a lot to a lot of people. So I would definitely urge people to go if you're in Kentucky, you're in Louisville, if you could stop by the museum to take a look, because they really have done a wonderful job. And that whole week, Wayne actually received recently the Breeders' Cup Award of Excellence. And Bob Baffert got up and spoke on his behalf. Todd Pletcher spoke on his behalf. And it really was a wonderful event. I tell you the truth, it was a little bit of a tearjerker for many people, because you see how much admiration these guys have for Wayne and how much he's meant to them. And again, these guys are people that are at the top of the game. So to see how much he's influenced them was really touched me.
Yeah, and he just changed the structure of the game in a way that has affected a lot of those folks and allowed them to get to the places they've gotten. Christina, got to wrap it up, but again, we'll remind people, DerbyMuseumStore.com. You can go there to find a copy. DWayneLucasBook.com for multiple copies. Sermon on the Mount, the story of D. Wayne Lukas. Again, just an iconic figure in the racing game. So, again, Christina, congratulations to you for getting Wayne Lukas to agree to sit down and help you compile all this information. I'm looking forward to getting a read of it myself. But as I say, probably a great Christmas gift for folks on your list who may be racing fans. And again, good luck going forward with it.
Thank you very much. And also, just to give people a little bit more information, if they want to follow us on Twitter, DWLSOTM, which is Sermon on the Mount. Follow us on Twitter or on Facebook, Sermon on the Mount, D. Wayne Lukas, and then you get all the updates, where we're available, and all that good stuff. But thank you very much. It's been a wonderful ride.
And again, congratulations on the book, and good luck going forward. We'll talk again.
Thank you.
Christina Bosanakis, again, it's Sermon on the Mount, book on D. Wayne Lucas, and as I say, an iconic figure in the racing game. A great gift for the Christmas season right around the corner, the Christmas/holiday season right around the corner. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, Pat Cummings, Thoroughbred Idea Foundation. We'll get a little update on where they're headed and what's happened over the past few months, and also talk about their recent paper, again, on kind of maybe changing up the way America looks at the way stewards adjudicate races. We'll do that right after this. Stay tuned.
To me, it's a privilege to be able to do this, and I mean that sincerely. And we see the need for it more and more. And when you do see the people that are in line for the turkeys, it makes it all well worth it.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices, to know how to connect the dots? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool, but not the only tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. These too are important tools, and you'll find them all right here at Capital OTB. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
To me, it's a privilege to be able to do this, and I mean that sincerely. And we see the need for it more and more. And when you do see the people that are in line for the turkeys, it makes it all well worth it.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. Seth Merrow in the studio. Excuse me, joined now by Pat Cummings, Executive Director of the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation. Pat, good morning.
Good morning, Seth.
As I said at the top of the show, I wanted to catch up with you just to get a little catch up on the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation itself, and you guys put out a paper within the last week or so that I wanted to hit on as well. But let's start out. We had you sit in with us this summer up at Saratoga. You had pretty much just moved into the executive director role after having spent some time with the Hong Kong Jockey Club. We talked earlier this year with one of the founders of the TIF, Craig Bernick from Glen Hill Farm. We mentioned then the prominent names that are among the board of directors, Corey Johnson, Paul Matisse, Jack Wolf, one of the board members, among many others. Sounded then and continues to sound like a great idea for the racing game to kind of put new and fresh ideas forward. When we talked to you then, as I say, in the summertime, you were just underway. Now you have a few months under your belt. Give us a little update on your experience and just the TIF, the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation overall.
Well, thanks for the chance at the follow-up, Seth, and it was good seeing you in the summer. You know, we kind of took the approach that we were going to tackle some big items ourselves, some topics that would have some really in-depth research, and advocate for positions that require some change. And, you know, it's not as if handle figures in North American racing have been excessively positive over the last decade or two. That we could just kind of sit back and relax and say everything's fine. We can't do that. We need to be moving forward. And absent a body that was trying to brainstorm ideas, test ideas, do the research, and suggest different ways forward, that's why Craig and the board came together to create this organization to essentially serve as a think tank for the sport. And since we last spoke in August, we have released two what we would otherwise call white papers, kind of in-depth looks at two different topics. One was on the topic of breakage, and for what it's worth, New York, and particularly the New York Racing Association, has the best breakage scenario in the country, which is why you're able to get those payoffs that go to a dime for pays under $10. So you see $9.90, $9.70, $9.50 in New York. You don't see that anywhere else in the country, and that was a product of Governor Cuomo's commission back in the mid-1990s. Steve Criss was very involved in it, but we think that nationwide there needs to be more of a change and an adjustment. And lots of people fear change, but given the metrics that we are faced with in this industry, there is a need to change. We need to turn the tide. We need to stem the losses. We need to retain customers. We need to reach out to our customers and present an economically friendly sport. And these are some of the things that we're trying to advocate for. So that's been going well. We continue to kind of pound the pavement with that. We've met with the various horsemen's groups to discuss it. And the topic of breakage, kind of what goes forward in America, is on the agenda for the Model Rules Committee to discuss in December as part of the Racing Commissioners International meeting out in Tucson, Arizona. And I'll be there to advocate on behalf of essentially horse players in the industry to consider making a change over the next year or two. Now, subsequent to that, we just put out a second paper, as you alluded to, and that was really trying to bring about and advocate for a position of consistency, something that players can really get behind, all industry stakeholders, consistency in the steward's room. And, it really kind of came out on our introduction to the paper. It's called Changing the Rules, and you can find it at racingthinktank.com. The introduction is based around comments from Mike Welsh and Mike Watchmaker at the RPAS Saratoga meeting. And their belief that there were some dramatic inconsistencies, and I know they were not alone in saying so, over the stewards and some of the decisions that were made. And so we reviewed that in more of a larger picture scheme and presented an alternative that is out there that would switch the rules philosophy that is in place in North America. And what we more or less surmised is that the stewards are not the problem. The rules are the problem.
Yeah, and let me just interrupt and so I can set this up, because I pulled a couple of charts off of the report, and as we talk, we'll show those, and I'll just explain. One of the charts is California versus New York racing, and you and the team kind of reviewed incidents and looked at the demotions or the disqualifications. And it's interesting because you looked at more races being run in New York as compared to California, but there were more disqualifications and more reviewed incidents in California, which implies an inconsistency in stewards' rulings in different jurisdictions. So there's kind of the basic, the foundation you're building off of. There's a second chart where you look at the way they do it over in Great Britain and the percentage of disqualifications there, and then project out here in the United States, and you'll see what we do now as compared to the difference if we use these other rules. But all of these are based on Category 1 and Category 2 sets of rules for the stewards. So why don't we just start out, kind of explain Category 1, Category 2, what we use and what's used in other jurisdictions around the world.
So what is used in the U.S. and Canada is what's considered the Category 2 interference philosophy. And Category 2 is, as you would, if someone asked you to look at a race today, it's almost assuredly that the method with which you would look at it. It states that the interfering horse is placed behind the sufferer of the interference, regardless of whether the suffering horse would have finished in front of the horse that interfered with it. So if there is some sort of interference, and in the belief of the stewards, they think that it may have either cost the horse a placing or an opportunity at a better placing. Different states have some different wording. Then they make a change. That rule breeds a great deal of subjectivity, because the stewards have to look at it and say, geez, it was a better placing cost because of this. Some decisions are very clear-cut and some are not. And that rule, in some degree, is in place everywhere in the U.S. and Canada. Every other major racing jurisdiction on the planet has switched to what is known as a Category 1 interference philosophy. Category 1 states that irrespective of the incident between a horse that did the interfering and a horse that was suffering the interference, the stewards have to believe that the suffering horse would have finished in front of the horse that interfered with it. It's a much tougher burden to prove. And Category 1 rulings basically yield very few takedowns. And the paper and the numbers that you showed on the charts make it pretty clear that if, for example, in the U.S., the same philosophy was in place, the same rates of reviews and demotions as, say, in the United Kingdom last year, what that would have yielded is, from the 42,000 races in North America, a total of 81 takedowns. 81 horses having been demoted across 42,000 races all year, U.S., Canada, Puerto Rico.
Yeah, and we can see we're showing that chart right now, and in parentheses there are the actual number, and to the left of that are the numbers if we used that different category that is used around the rest of the world, and you can see the difference there. And as you say, reading the summary on the front page as well, this isn't going to do away with controversy and closer looks. And you mentioned the race up at Saratoga, Personal Ensign with Abel Tasman and Elate, and the Cotillion with Monomoy Girl and Midnight Bijou. They would still look at those. Yeah. Folks still may have some questions about it. But as we saw by those numbers, just overall, it adds a level of consistency, I think, for people. They're going to know what to expect more. And if we can get rules that are the same across the country, that just alone adds consistency.
Yeah, and make no mistake, Seth, there is no 100% equitable solution, okay, where everyone is going to say this absolutely makes sense in every case. I never disagree with the rulings. Category 1 is about clarity and consistency, and it basically promotes the best horse philosophy. The best horse on the day is typically the one that ends up netting out the benefit. Category 2, what we have right now, attempts to be as fair and just as possible, and it takes a horse that may have finished down the field but may have suffered some interference and may have been cost fourth or third or second or maybe win, and it respects that aggrievement to a greater degree. The problem is that system yields wild inconsistencies across groups of stewards. And while, again, there is no perfect solution, we're of the opinion that what has been in place and what the world has gradually shifted to, minus America, it's about time to maybe consider following suit. And making that change.
And reading the report, I found it very, very interesting. We have an example to look at, and the example was Japan. They made the change a few years ago, and you quoted their stats after the change was made.
Yeah, it was pretty remarkable, Seth. They changed in the beginning of the 2013 year in the JRA, kind of their top-tier racing. And we're talking about 3,400 races a year, so roughly combining the New York and the Southern California circuits. And in the 5 full years, so not counting this year, but in the 5 full years that have gone by since the change, they have not either reviewed races to the same amount or demoted horses to the same amount as they did in these 5 years in just the last year of the old system. So they haven't even gotten a cumulative number of horses taken down, of reviewed incidents, to match what they did in 2012. Now, I make a mention, France and Germany were the last 2 European countries to make the change. They just did it this year, and the numbers out of France suggest that reviewed incidents are down by a third, and the number of horses that have been demoted are down by half. So it's just trying to present a more consistent sport to our stakeholders that everyone can agree on that is just a more friendly environment in which one can invest, have a greater understanding of the types of rules, the types of decisions that are made. And there's a lot of information in here about what stewards say about it, including some American stewards who think that it makes their job easier and provides that consistency that players have been calling for decades.
And again, it says in the report that some of the high-profile ones that we had just within the last 4 or 5 months, these situations would still come up. People would still be frustrated if they wind up on the short end of the stick as far as a DQ or a non-DQ. But with this kind of a situation, when you have consistency, at least well, okay, I wound up on the short end of the stick today, but over time it's going to even out for me. If there's consistency as a fan, you can certainly have that feeling.
A close race is almost always going to get looked at if there is some sort of interference, okay, regardless of the rules philosophy that's in place. But what would almost be eliminated entirely is a horse that wins by 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 lengths, and we put several examples in the paper that get taken down for interfering with a horse that was never, ever going to be best on the day. And when you see these horses that win by big spaces that are taken down for what might otherwise be minor or early interference in a race, it's incredibly frustrating and very difficult to participate when you know that this inconsistency could come and take you down. As different people have commented to us, I hate having to win a race twice. I hate having to actually win it and then win it again in the steward's room. And that, the Category 1 philosophy respects those big winners. The best horse is the one that often gets the benefit of the doubt. And I think a lot of bettors can get behind that.
Again, that's available. The latest paper came out within the last week or so, available at racingthinktank.com. Also, you can read the report about breakage, and we had the discussion kind of in anticipation of that when we talked to you this summer. Then breakage, it's frustrating because it's a complete anachronism in the day of computers and a lot of people betting on their computers where money isn't even changing hands to begin with. So why doesn't it go down to the penny these days? And so that's a great discussion as well as the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation continues to plug along with really fans as a big part of the discussion here and these ideas you're putting out. Just before we let you go, Pat, again, the website, racingthinktank.com. There's a Twitter account @RacingIdeas, and you still reach out to people, including fans, who just may have ideas on how to better the game, correct?
Yeah, that's right, Seth. And people can go to racingthinktank.com and submit their own ideas. We've had a whole bunch that have come in over the last 2 weeks since we launched the new website, and we are kind of curating them a little bit, engaging with the people, asking a couple questions. But we're going to start publishing those ideas. And they're not all perfect. They have some holes in them, but they are designed to encourage discussion, to get people thinking, to kind of centralize that information into one place, and hopefully inspire the leaders of our industry to take notice and to start innovating, to start changing, to start modernizing, to start improving this game that we all love so much.
And I think it's encouraging that the industry certainly seems to be taking you guys seriously. As you said, you have the event coming up in just a few weeks, but also I read just within the last few days, Thoroughbred Idea Foundation, you're going to have a panel that will give the keynote address at the HBPA convention in March.
Exactly. It's been great support. I think people are craving this sort of change. There are so many people that are passionate about the sport that it's something we really do all need to be able to get behind and to be willing to accept and move forward and improve the sport. And I'm sure there are some people that aren't a fan of what we're doing, but we haven't heard too much from them yet. I'm sure we will at some point, Seth. But if anyone is taking a hard look at the numbers and the economics behind what we're doing as an industry, I think everybody can agree it can be better. It has to be better. And there's too much competition that is on the doorstep that is starting to emerge that we cannot ignore. We cannot ignore our own home. We have to clean up our own home and present a really competitive product.
Well, you've been an idea guy since I've known you, and you were a great choice for the executive director of the TIF. It was a great idea putting the organization together. I'm rooting for you guys. I'm going to submit some ideas as well. I have a whole slew of them that I want to get out there, so I'll toss them out to you guys also. But again, folks can visit the website and read the papers. There are summaries there as well if you just have a few minutes and want to catch up. But I'm sure you guys would like feedback, what people think of the breakage issue and the stewards' consistency issue from the racing fans. So again, we have the website and the Twitter account up on the screen right now. People can visit those. But Pat, as always, appreciate the visit, appreciate what you and the folks at the TIF are doing, and certainly we'll talk in the future.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
Pat Cummings, again, Executive Director of the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation. Again, highly recommended. Swing by racingthinktank.com and take a look at those two papers. And if you have ideas, let them know. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll shift our attention. Fairgrounds, opening day just a couple days ago. We'll get a little preview of this upcoming Fairgrounds meet with Ryan Martin. Right after this, stay tuned.
Dirty windows? Don't do it yourself. Call Clean Image, your window cleaning professionals, and enhance the look of your business or home without the worry. Clean Image pledges nothing less than 100% customer satisfaction. It's guaranteed. Homes, offices, bed and breakfast, vacation homes, and more. Clean Image has cleaned them all. Carpet and floor cleaning, pressure washing, and janitorial services are also available. Call today, 446-1397. That's 446-1397. Online at clean-image.net.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Sign up today for Capital OTB's handicapping series and plan your trip to Las Vegas. Welcome back to Racing Across America. Saturday morning, a couple days into the Fairgrounds meet. They opened things up on Thursday, so I thought, hey, let's get a little preview. And so we reached out to Ryan Martin. He's the media relations guy down at Fairgrounds, but also in the paddock until our buddy Joe Christofek gets down there for the season. Ryan, good morning.
Good morning. Hi, thanks for having me on.
Happy to have you on. We've seen you in the paddock for the past couple of days and appreciate your commentary. And again, as the media relations guy, I thought you could cover a little preview of Fairgrounds as well. Just give us a little update how'd the first couple of days go. I noticed we're up here in the Northeast. We're up in the Saratoga area, and we're watching, obviously, New York racing and a little Laurel and even Churchill, your sister track the other day with some snow. So the weather's been a little dicey up here, but it looked like a nice sunny day Thursday and Friday down at Fairgrounds. Give us a little update on the first 2 days.
Yeah, the weather couldn't have been any better yesterday. Thursday started off a little bit on a chillier note, but it did warm up later on in the day. Obviously, some great racing here kicking off at the Fairgrounds, a lot of Louisiana breds, one of which yesterday, 91 Assault, a horse I'm sure you being a New York guy, you're probably familiar with trainer Tom Morley, ran third in an allowance race at a price and ran a troubled third yesterday behind In the Navy, a horse that's really improved in form and has become a very solid stakes horse down here against Louisiana bred company. So In the Navy won yesterday's feature race, the Mr. Sulu, will point toward Louisiana Champions Day. Spoke with trainer Scott Gellner following the race. He says Champions Day is the game plan. On opening day, we had the Tom Benson Memorial kick things off, and we had Mitchell Merle score a three-bagger that day, one of which was aboard Remember Daisy in the featured event on opening day. And so that was a Gary Shearer trainee, and Gary Shearer has a big chance in tomorrow's feature, the Happy Ticket, with Shakopee Town, a filly who romped here last meet, breaking her maiden by 14 lengths.
You've talked about some of the human element, and I looked on Equibase and pulled up last year's season-ending stats on the jockey side. It was a good race last year. Sean Bridgman slightly over Adam Beschizza, and Flojo, Florent Giraud ran third. They were 66 for Bridgman, 65 for Beschizza, 62 for Flojo. So they, as I say, had a good battle at the fairground season last year. Over on the trainer side, it was, again, a good battle. Brad Cox on top with 53 winners, Joe Sharp with 49. Give us a little update on who we might watch this year, who's back, who's new down there in the trainer and jockey colonies.
So Brad Cox is back. Brad Cox actually, on a side note, is 2 victories away from his milestone 1,000th win. So, yeah, Brad Cox creeping up on that 1,000th career victory. All the usual guys, Tom Amos, Al Stahl, Mike Stidham back, guys like that, Tom Morley from New York. But some new faces on the backside. Johnny Ortiz is having horses here. Also Ralph Nix, whose dad, Morris Nix, retired earlier this year. Ralph Nix sent a small string here to the fairgrounds and had a winner yesterday, a Louisiana-bred, taking a drop-in class from Open Company at Gulfstream West, won yesterday against State Breds. So Ralph Nix is going to have horses here. Norm Cassie also will be represented, as will Tony Dutra, sending a small string.
Give us a little update on the jockey side. Again, who's back, who's new?
So who's new? Ty Kennedy is new in the jocks room, and he's made a nice presence for himself, scored a pair of victories on opening day, and then also scored a win yesterday. So 3 wins on the meet already for Ty Kennedy, a new face in the jockeys' quarters. Your usual guys, Adam Beschizza's back. He rode in the Navy yesterday. He rode a couple of nice-looking maidens for Joe Sharp on opening day as well as yesterday. So guys like that. Joe Rocco is also coming to the fairgrounds. And so we got some new faces on the backside as well as the jockeys' quarters, as well as some mainstays as well. Florent Giroux, Sean Bridgman, Adam Beschizza. Florent's still up at Churchill, but he will be back here following the meet.
And I was correct that Joe's going to come down and, again, be in the paddock during the meet, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, Joe's finishing up his duties up at Churchill Downs, and I'm filling in for him in the paddock.
I'm assuming when Joe comes, we'll still see you in the paddock, though.
Oh, yeah. No, I will certainly be on air. Obviously not to the extent that I am now, but I will certainly be in the paddock at least one race a day.
Very good. And let's get some thoughts for Saturday afternoon down at the fairgrounds before we talk races specifically. What's the weather look like today?
Today, gorgeous. I'd say it's somewhere in the 60s, but sunny skies. I'd say partly cloudy. Gorgeous day. I can imagine we will be fast and firm. Haven't had any precipitation the past few days.
And we talked before we went on the air, and you said you had a couple ideas to kind of kick off that 50-cent Black Gold 5 down there, and that does start in race 5 at the fairgrounds on Saturday afternoon. Boy, this is a nice race. A maiden special weight event. They're going to go about 1 1/16 on the grass. A really full field in here. I'm just kind of looking. There are a few that I could make cases for, but what did you think in race 5 this afternoon?
Yeah, so there's certainly plenty of cases to be made. The 2-horse Ian Glass for Tom Morley, he is, kind of taking a slight drop in class. Ran behind 40 Under, who ran a nice race in the Breeders' Cup. Empire of War, he ran behind him last out at Belmont. So this horse has plenty of experience going 1 1/16 on the grass. A lot of upside to this one. A nice bred son of Hard Fun. And so Ian Glass currently are a 6-1 morning line. So that would be one to look out for here. Mensch as well, the 4-horse, is another well-bred one for trainer Brad Cox, a first-time starter. This one is out of Ms. Ida, who I hadn't heard that name in a while. I believe she won a few stakes over at Churchill, Ms. Ida. So a well-bred daughter of Broken Vow making her career debut for Brad Cox. Also, Bold Proposition for Mark Cassie. won a race yesterday, the last race with Fortunate Girl, and looked very nice doing so. Bold Proposition switches to the turf after 2 efforts on the dirt.
And as I say, just looking at it, there were some horses in here I found interesting. Firster by Orb, Oil Rubbed Bronze, the number 6, from Joe Sharp. He does pretty good with firsters. Young Mr. Carroll on board that one.
That's right. Declan Carroll also has done very well since becoming a rider, and he's only been a jockey for a short period of time, and has done very well. Won a couple races at Churchill. He ran a third here at the fairgrounds on opening day, and he also was second in the third race aboard a very big long shot. A nice ride by young Declan Carroll. And Joe Sharp, again, has done very well with his young horses the first 2 days of the meet. He had Midnight Fantasy score on opening day with Adam Beschitz aboard. She's going to point toward the Louisiana Champions Day race for 2-year-old fillies on the dirt. So look out for her. She looks like a real nice one. And I spoke to Joe the following day, and he told me that him and owner Carl Moore kind of played around with the idea of running her in Kentucky against Open Company. So they obviously think highly of her.
Very good. All right, let's move on to race 6 this afternoon. That is the feature, the High Tie Statebreds, sprinting 6 furlongs. And Ryan, while we talk, I pulled up the Louisiana Cup Sprint. We'll watch the stretch run going back to August 4th. This is going to be the last race that Monty Man was in, so maybe the layoff is a concern, but number 7, Monty Man, gets it done in a ding-dong battle as the 6-5 favorite, and again, has been off since that race in August, but that was the 6th race win in a row, so comes in with a nice win streak. The 8-5 morning line favorite in here, field of 7. What are your thoughts on the High Tie?
Well, Monty Man is certainly the one to beat, and ever since Ron Fauché claimed the horse back in August of last year, he has been on a tear, and he has not lost since. I spoke with Ron about a week ago, and he really likes the horse, and, I mean, how can you not? I mean, this horse's form has done a complete
I did not notice that, but the win streak is after the claim, and I'm just looking up 5 for 5 in 2018, claim for 25,000 so far in 2018, 216,000. That's a pretty good claim.
Quite a return on investment as well. Yeah, and the horse is versatile. He won a stake out here on Louisiana Derby Day, the Coastal Rising on grass. He was priced that day. He was 6-1. Beschitzer rode him that day. And so he's versatile, and it's really nice to see horses that can do that. Horses that you can switch surfaces on them, and it doesn't really faze them. I really don't know that they're going to beat Monty Man today. Obviously, your 5 horse in here, Cheers to Birdie, gave him a run for his money, and then kind of backed up that performance. Next out, won at Louisiana Downs against Open Company by 9 1/4 lengths as the heavy favorite. So Cheers to Birdie's a nice one. Grand Basin is scratched as he ran in yesterday's race and ran second behind In the Navy at a big price. Grand Basin the second yesterday, so he won't be in today. Giacomo Song is another one for Mike Stidham. Giacomo Song won off a pretty long layoff 3 starts back at Arlington, gets Mitchell Merle back on him, and ran 4th. But he wasn't well beaten at all. He was only beaten a few lengths his last 2 starts. But he is going back to the main track at the fairgrounds. He is 3 for 7. So he can definitely handle the surface here.
Looking forward to it to see if Monty Man can keep the win streak alive. Ryan, appreciate the visit and the update and a little preview on the fairgrounds meet. Wish you and everybody down there good luck throughout the meet. We'll enjoy watching you over the next few days until Joe gets down there in the paddock. So keep up the good work. Good luck, and we'll talk again.
Excellent. Thanks for having me on.
Ryan Martin from the fairgrounds. Again, meet kicked off a couple of days ago, and so that'll be in our mix throughout this late fall and winter season as well. Always like the fairgrounds racing. Before we go, I pulled up a quick race to look at, and I believe we have the entire race in the sound as well, so I'll just set it up. And I just wanted to bring this up because Mind Your Biscuits announced as retired this year, and if you listen to the Handicappers Report earlier, Brian Nadeau and I talked about this race a little bit earlier this year, the Golden Shaheen from Meydan. It's a phenomenal race. There's no point in the race where you think Mind Your Biscuits is going to win. And having won this race for the second year in a row, obviously a 7-figure purse over in Dubai, and you win that a couple of times, that helps you become the money-winningest New York bred of all time, well over $4 million in the bank for Mind Your Biscuits. And again, that was helped by this Golden Shaheen earlier this year. But Mind Your Biscuits had a workout earlier this week. They weren't thrilled with it, didn't think he bounced back completely from the Breeders' Cup effort, which was a little bit of a disappointment. They were thinking maybe Cigar Mile or the Clark down at Churchill as one last start. But they decided after the workout just to call it a career. And, 8 wins, 10 seconds, 3/3, and 24 starts. And again, over $4 million in the bank for the New York bred Mind Your Biscuits. Chad Summer, family and team, congratulations to them for the great career of Mind Your Biscuits. But again, just before we go, and I'll come back in a minute to wrap things up, but I did want to go back and show that Golden Shaheen if you haven't seen it. It's one of those eye-popping kind of performances that is worth taking a look at. So up next, the Golden Shaheen, as we remember the career of Mind Your Biscuits.
My Catch both began very quickly, and so too XY Jet. Just behind them, Matera Sky, Ronaldo the Wizard. They were followed by Roy H, not quickly out, but cruising up on the outside from Wild Dude. And Mind Your Biscuits went back to the tail. About to come off the back in the Golden Shaheen, and Jordan Sport made light work of the outside draw, went straight to the lead. XY Jet in second, followed by Matera Sky. Roy H around the outside of My Catch. A gap away then to Wild Dude, Ronaldo the Wizard, and Mind Your Biscuits. They win 23.52 for the first 400 metres. 500 metres to go, top of the lane. Moving up on the outside, XY Jet puts the pressure on Jordan Sport. Roy H came to the outside. Matera Sky for Japan is battling on well. A gap off to Mind Your Biscuits inside the final 250. XY Jet is the front runner. Roy H having his work to try and get him down the outside. It's XY Jet in front. Coming at him is Roy H. Mind Your Biscuits begins to fly. XY Jet, Roy H, Mind Your Biscuits down the outside. XY Jet, Mind Your Biscuits, Flo got him. Mind Your Biscuits from last takes out the Golden Shaheen from XY Jet, and Roy H followed by Wild Dude. Next to come across the line is Matera Sky, followed by next in Jordan Sport, then Ronaldo the Wizard. A gap off to My Catch, who runs into the rear.
Again, incredible. They passed the 200-meter mark, and he's still not on the screen. Incredible performance from Mind Your Biscuits earlier this year in the Golden Shaheen in Dubai. And again, congratulations, Chad Summers, trainer. He and his dad and brother among the ownership group. So congratulations to them on a great career for Mind Your Biscuits, who was retired earlier this week. And hence the stud duty in Japan. All right, thanks to Ryan Martin from the Fairgrounds for that little preview of the meet and a couple ideas for this afternoon. Pat Cummings from the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation. Again, the website, racingthinktank.com. You can read more about the TIF and also the two papers they put out so far, the one on breakage and the one on maybe changing up the rules in this country as far as stewards and the way they adjudicate races. They're both interesting papers and worth taking note of. And again, if you have some ideas on how the game might be improved, ship them off to the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation. They'd like to hear from you. Top of the show, Christina Bosanakis, who's the author of Sermon on the Mount, the story of D. Wayne Lucas. As I say, a great potential gift for the holiday season for the racing fan in your family or in your group. Again, you can go to derbymuseumstore.com to order a copy right now. All right. Hit you with a couple of promotions before we wrap things up. Today is a Fan Appreciation Day at the Catskill Lanes Easy Bet. If you're a patron there, swing on by between noon and 4 p.m. The first folks through the door, a bet voucher and some other items. There's a contest during the afternoon, food and beverage. Always a lot of fun at the Fan Appreciation Days because it gives us our chance to say thank you to you, the patrons of Capital OTB. That's the Catskill Lanes Easy Bet today between noon and 4. Tomorrow it's an NFL Sunday here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Wear a jersey, you get in for free, put your name on a square, and potentially win a prize. But more importantly, you can enjoy all the racing action unless you're a Jets fan. I just had to throw that in as a Jets fan. In that case, you can kind of come down here and torture yourself. But watch all the football action and all the racing action every Sunday during the NFL season right here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Wednesday, don't forget, turkey giveaway, courtesy of our friend Roddy Valente and family. And hey, congratulations to Steve Valente with the win down at Laurel. Was it yesterday or the day before? Had the win with Invigorate, was it? Or Vigorous? But did have a nice win with Loudmouth Racing down at Laurel within the past couple of days. But Roddy and family, again, have sponsored this the past few years. We appreciate their participation. And as you can see along the bottom of the screen, other sponsors as well. Thanks to them. 1,200 turkeys to be handed out to families in need this Wednesday, starting at 11 a.m. right here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Bankroll coming up. We're on the road with the bankroll. We'll be at O'Toole's on Friday. Sully will be there. Things will kick off, I think about noontime, 1 o'clock or so at O'Toole's. We'll update you on that as the week progresses. But again, that's coming up Friday, right down Central Avenue at O'Toole's, another one of our Easy Bet branches. Should be a lot of fun. The bankrolls on the road always are. All right, that takes you through the promos and events. Oh, I didn't remind you of 3% bonuses on Churchill. That, of course, continues to the month of November. Play with your Capital OTB Bets account. Play Churchill Downs. You get a 3% bonus. There are some restrictions. Check out the website for more info there. But again, that continues through the month of November. All right, now I'm up to date. I'll be back in an hour or so with post times being what they are for OTB Live this afternoon. We'll see if we can give you some good information on some of the tracks we'll be taking a look at. They are off the turf today at Aqueduct, unfortunately, because the stakes race was scheduled, nice stakes race on the turf. So unfortunately that has come off. But again, that time of year, that type of weather as well. Back tomorrow morning for more Racing Across America at 10 a.m. But as I say, today we'll be back in just about an hour or so with OTB Live. So hope you enjoyed the show this morning, and we'll see you in about an hour. Stay tuned.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.